Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 371XP chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it's running a little bit sluggish. So we're going to dig into this and see if we can figure out why. Yeah, I think he's got a big job coming up. He may have even worked on this thing. And it's just not exactly right. It's an older saw. He's had it a while, so I'm sure he knows if it's running right or not. First thing I'm doing is looking at the fuel in the tank. And it, looks good. It smells decent. And there's no water in the bottom of the funnel. We're going to take a look next inside the fuel tank and take a look at that fuel filter. And right away, I can see, without even pulling the filter out, that it's pretty bad. Let's take a look at it. Yeah, that filter has been in there for a while. Look at the bottom of it, how dark it is. So we're going to get a new filter on there. Before we do that, we're going to pressure test this line, put 10 pounds of pressure on here, and see if the line holds. And it looks like it is. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, yeah, I've seen this on your videos 100 times. What about all this business in the thumbnail that says we're going to get to play some games? Well, what we're going to do is, I've been thinking about ways to try and spice up a video here and there. And I've laid this out in such a way that I kind of staged one of the scenes here. I'm going to tell you the proper way to do the repair, but I'm going to show you something different. And if you're on top of your game, you might catch it. If you're not real familiar with saws and you just enjoy watching this pretty face babble at you on YouTube, then you might not catch it. But I know a lot of people like to try and, they do their own repair work and they like to size themselves up against everyone else that's out there. I mean, really, it's not like we grade ourselves against each other. We just do the repairs, and some guy's got a better reputation than the other. I don't know. That's just a long way of saying this will give you a chance to see if you can catch me trying to fool you. So before I reveal what I did, I'm going to stop at the end of the video and give you a chance to consider what that might be before I reveal the answer. So until then, I'm just going to go on with this video as it normally would be. All right, we're putting 10 pounds of pressure on this fuel line, and it looks like it's holding. I'm jiggling that line around a little bit because sometimes a line could have a crack in it, and it only reveals itself when it's bent in a certain direction, and the gauge never moves. So I'm going to assume that line is good and the carburetor is tight. I also want to note that the line felt good. It wasn't hard and brittle, and it wasn't soft and spongy. So if you follow these videos, you know that the next thing I usually do is dig into the cylinder and see if it's scored or not. But holy moly, I can't even get that air filter off of there. That nut was really tight. Look at that filter. It looks like it's really clean or maybe new. And I don't see any dirt down in the throat of the air filter base. So that looks good. Pulling the spark plug out, that looks brand new. So I think he changed the filter and the spark plug in an attempt to fix his sluggishness complaint that he had. Looking into the cylinder, I don't see any scoring in there. It's clean and shiny, looks as it should. If you wanted to do a compression test, now would be the time to do it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to look in the carburetor. He couldn't tell me the last time anyone's been in there, or he wouldn't tell me. I don't know, one of the two. So we kind of agreed that it would be okay for me to dig into the carb and see what's going on. I removed the top cover and just kind of checking the intake boot. Everything looks good here. Looking at the flywheel, though, I noticed that there's some scratches on it, and maybe the magnets are hitting the ignition coil. So I'm going to have to remove the starter, take a closer look at that. 4 screws holding the starter on. These are either a Phillips or a slotted screwdriver will remove these screws. And we're backing them out with a Phillips. So there's our starter. That white kill wire, that may not be factory original, I'm not sure. You know, it's an older saw, probably been worked on before. Most certainly has been. So this gray piece, this is called an air conductor. Just helps direct the cooling air from the flywheel fan across the cylinder fins. So I want to check the air gap between the flywheel magnets and the ignition coil. And it seemed a little bit tight, so we're going to another tight screw here. It's about as tight as that air filter nut was. We're going to loosen the 2 screws on the coil, slip the 0.3 millimeter feeler gauge between the magnet of the flywheel and the ignition coil. We'll let the coil snap up to the magnet, draw it tight, and then we'll crank down the screws. Then afterwards, I like to slip the feeler gauge in between the magnet and the ignition coil and make sure we just have a light drag. I'm happy with the way the air gap feels. We're going to put the air conductor back in place and then route our high tension lead and our kill wire through the air conductor. It's got some little slots in there for the wires. Looks good. And we'll put the starter back on. Jiggle the handle a little bit. Get the starter to line up with the starter pawls. And it drops into place. Get these 4 screws cranked down. I could have sped through this, I suppose. This one screw here also holds the one side of the brake handle. Alright, so we got sidetracked there a little bit, but we'll get back to the carburetor. So to remove this, I'm going to need a 3 millimeter some kind of tool. In this case, I'm going to use a ball end screwdriver, 3 millimeter. I use the ball end because I can come in there on a little bit of an angle. It's just easier to do. Well, it's no power tool, but it doesn't really take that long to spin these out by hand. Although it feels really long when you're trying to narrate a video. Okay. Our choke lever, it just snaps into the linkage on the carburetor. And I'm using my scrunch to pop it out of there, and then we kind of roll it out of that hole in the face of the saw. And then we have 2 rubber lines. This one here is the main fuel line that the filter is on. And this one here is an impulse line. On the other side, we've got the throttle cable. If I hold the throttle open manually at the carburetor, then there's slack in the cable. And if I pick at it enough, I can get that ferrule of the cable out of the linkage of the carburetor, and it's disconnected. Alright, I think I only pulled one of the screws out of there. We'll get the other screw out of the air filter base. I don't know what's going on with that screw. There, we got it with a magnet. Now I have a choice. I can remove that whole air filter base, or I can just kind of harvest that carburetor right out from in between the intake and the air filter base. You'll notice those two red bushings in the carburetor. Sometimes they're in there with a pretty good friction fit, like this one. Or other times they'll just slide right out and you'll drop them on the floor. So be mindful of them. They're just a couple of bushings that kind of take up the play in those narrow bolts that are used on here. So the fuel pump diaphragm looked a little bit stretched, but the microscreen looked decent. On the metering diaphragm side, 4 screws hold the plate down. We'll get them buzzed off of there. Again, it seems like an eternity when I don't speed up through these. But there you go. And the plate don't want to pop off of there. Let's grab something sharp and pry it off. How about a razor blade? Alright, I don't see any rust or evidence of water in there. And the metering diaphragm itself, it's really not that bad. I mean, the saw would run on that, and I don't think that's the reason for his sluggishness. I really think it was that dirty fuel filter. But we got it opened up, and we didn't like the fuel pump gasket, so we will put a kit in here. But before I do that, I want to just blow through the high speed and low speed jets. So, you know, what we want to do is gently seat each one of these and then count the turns it took to do that. So we got half, 1, and a quarter on this jet. Doesn't matter if it's the high or low. I would just want to put both of them back where they were so that I can experience what he's experienced minus any fixing that we did, right? Yeah, so there's your carb cleaner fountain. We just blew that through. Now we're going to gently seat this jet. We're not going to crank it down tight. We don't want to damage the jet. And next step is pick your screwdriver up off the floor. So we're going to lightly seat it, then back it out that 1/4, 3/4, 1 1/4. Then we move to the other jet. We're going to crank it down half, 1. That was it, 1 turn. Now we can back it all the way out. And we'll blow this one clean. You'll notice that some carb clean blows out through the center of the carburetor there. So we know that that passageway is clean. Now here again, we'll lightly seat the jet. And then we'll back it out that half and 1 turn. There we go. All right, here's our carb kit. What do we got? I think it's a full kit. Yep. So we're going to loosen the screw that holds the cross shaft of the metering lever. And that'll allow us to pull the metering lever, the cross shaft, right out of it. The spring is still sitting in the carburetor, and so is the screw. And so is the needle, actually. Or did I pull the needle out? No, I guess I pulled it out. So take a look at this needle. You can see a little bit of orange, a little bit of silver. Maybe it's blurry. But that's how it looks. It wasn't really super clean. And I'll explain what I mean by clean in a minute. So now that I've put some carb cleaner on it and wiped it off, you can see it's just a bright orange rubber needle. So that silver part that was on there, you know, I think it's some kind of a preservative. You can see this brand new needle has got that silver color to it. But when I hit it with carb cleaner and I wipe it off, what color do you think it's going to be? You said orange, you're wrong. This one's black. But the point is, it's not silver. So I think that they put rubber preservative on these from the factory. I've never seen any literature from Walbro or Zama about cleaning these things, but that product they put on there seems to partially wear off where the needle is seating. So what I'm doing here in the picture now is a second take, really. I mean, I see in the comments where people will say, well, you make it look so easy. Well, it doesn't look so easy now, does it? It doesn't always go on the first try. So I laid I laid the spring down on top of the carburetor. And now the metering lever and the cross shaft on top of that spring with the needle in the metering lever. And then we'll tighten down the screw and lock it in place. Metering lever looks like it operates properly. Metering lever height should be flush with the sides of the top of the carburetor. And I don't even check it in this picture, but I probably should have. It looked right though. So we put down our gasket and our new metering diaphragm. And then we'll wipe the schmutz off of this plate. And there must have been a lot of schmutz on it because I got some obsession with cleaning this thing, which really isn't all that necessary. I'm cleaning the outside of it. All right. And then the 4 screws that hold this down. Look at them go. At least I sped this one up. The other side of the carburetor. Fuel pump side. Surface looks good. We're going to take a razor blade and pop our micro screen out. And the screen looks pretty decent. I don't see any scum or anything blocking it up. But we'll install a new screen. Came with the kit. And I'm just going to use the bit, screwdriver bit that's in the driver there. They seem to be pretty good size for pushing these down into place. That looks good. Alright, here's our new fuel pump. And we're going to need to put a gasket on top of that. So these gaskets, they are indexed. There's a little round, there it is, little round index like to identify that gasket. Those two were the same. And they match the fuel pump, which had that same style round index on them. This kit came with extra gaskets. Probably makes sense if I had a different carburetor that used all those gaskets, but I don't. Okay. Carburetor's good. We'll put our guide bushing. We're going to call it a guide bushing because I don't know what it's called. The little rubber piece that you put the adjustment screwdriver through. Alright, so now I'm pushing the impulse line on the carburetor, and this is the fuel line. And then what are we going to do next? We're going to put a couple bolts in through the air filter base, through the carburetor to the intake. Got them lined up. And then our 3mm driver. Look at him go. Alright, looks good. Click. Our throttle cable. Drop the ferrule in on the linkage and pull the trigger to snap it in place. choke lever. We rock that into place and snap it into the side of the carburetor. Spark plug wire, put that on. Looks good. I probably could have used his fuel, but I'm putting fresh fuel in here because I will eventually adjust the carburetor. What are we looking at? I think we're just kind of second guessing that fuel line. Not sure why. It pressure tested fine and it felt fine. Okay. I guess I've decided to leave it on there. So we'll put some fresh gas in it. We can look for leaks. I mean, if there's a puddle on a bench, we know that that line isn't sealed in the tank. I mean, it could feel good, but not seal where it passes through the tank. Stop switch is on. Pull the choke. Let's see if this thing runs. Well, look at that. I had the thought to check the cylinder head bolts. At least 3 of them. I guess that was enough. Oh, hi. It looks like that carburetor is going to need a little bit more adjustment, and I'll show you some of that in a little bit. Then after the video, I'll put the saw together and I'll drop it in some wood and do my final adjustments. So were you able to find the spot in the video where I tried to trick you? I said I was doing one thing, but something else was going on. And if you want to go back and see if you can figure that out, do it now, because I'm about to reveal what it was that I did. Okay, time's up. Back around the 4 or 5 minute mark, I was working on setting the air gap on the coil. And I told you that I was going to put the feeler gauge between the magnet of the flywheel and the ignition coil. Let the coil snap up to the magnet, then tighten down the screws. If you were paying attention, the magnets of the flywheel were not facing the coil. They were 180 degrees and facing us. So I couldn't have done it the way I said I was doing it. If you caught that, then good for you. You're pretty observant. If you didn't catch it, don't beat yourself up over it. It was pretty subtle. And I was trying to sneak it in under the radar so nobody would catch it. Let me know in the comments if you did catch it or not. So if you like playing these kind of games, let me know and maybe I can make a few more videos like this. I was just trying to break up the monotony of another carb rebuild, right? So that's what I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna 371XP that just needed a little bit of attention. Thanks for watching. Later.